Thanks for tuning in to ARIRANG News. I'm Devin Whiting in Seoul. The defense ministers of South Korea and the United States met in Washington on Thursday, local time, and agreed to look into additional ways to strengthen deterrence against North Korea's missile and nuclear threats. Also discussed deploying U.S. strategic assets to South Korea permanently on a rotating basis. Kim Byun-bin has our top story.
This year's security consultative meeting at the Pentagon focused on expanding the Allies' extended deterrence to counter North Korea's growing nuclear and missile threats. Sitting down with South Korea's Defense Minister Han Min-koo, U.S. Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter said the U.S. will use the full spectrum of its defense capabilities to defend South Korea. He added that Washington is changing the structure of its forces on the peninsula to meet that end.
We're adapting our force structure on the peninsula, most recently by agreeing as allies to deploy THAAD to defend against North Korean missile threats. And that's why we're ensuring we remain ready to, as we say, fight tonight. And we're working together to achieve a conditions-based transfer of wartime operational control.
Mr. Han said the upgraded U.S. commitment offered by Secretary Carter will ensure South Korea can defeat any attack, including a potential nuclear attack by North Korea.
We discussed numerous measures of extended deterrence to better counter Pyongyang's nuclear and WMD threats. We're going to double our citizens' trust in extended deterrence.
The two defense chiefs are considering the permanent deployment of U.S. strategic assets to the Korean Peninsula on a rotational basis to strengthen extended deterrence against North Korea's threats. Kim Byun-bin, ARIRANG News, Washington, D.C.
In other news, Japan is stepping up its pressure on UNESCO in order to stop records of Tokyo's wartime sexual enslavement of women, most of them Korean, from becoming part of the Memory of the World Register. The register is a repository for historically significant documentary materials. Japan's pushing for UNESCO to change its screening process for such records to keep Tokyo's sex slavery off the list. Kwon Jang-ho has this report.
Tokyo is continuing to ramp up the pressure on UNESCO as it fights to prevent its wartime sexual enslavement records from being listed on the Memory of the World Register. The register was formed in 1994 to keep important historical documents from being lost. But according to Tokyo's Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida, as reported by Japanese daily Sankei Shimbun on Friday, the UN body is now set to revise the screening process through which items for its World Registry are chosen. UNESCO is currently considering an application from Korean and international civic groups to include records of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of women. Over 2,700 documents were included in the application, including photos and victim statements. Tokyo is insisting that any decision concerning the registry be taken after the reorganization process, with Kishida saying that only under a new system will they consider rulings as valid. Until then, Japan is expected to put pressure on UNESCO by continuing to withhold its annual payment of $3.7 million, a decision taken after documents provided by China concerning the 1937 Nanjing massacre were listed against Tokyo's requests last year. At the time, Tokyo criticized the application process, saying it was not transparent enough and needed changing. Japan was the organization's highest-paying member after the US cut off payments in 2011 in protest against Palestine gaining UNESCO membership. But now, with Japan withholding its dues, observers are concerned that Tokyo will try to hold the organization at ransom and for how long it will continue to do so. Kwon Jang-ho, ARIRANG News.
It's the final day of the National Assembly's month-long audit of government agencies. Last but not least in the hot seat on this Friday are the Presidential Secretary's Office, the National Security Council, and the Presidential Security Service. However, the bulk of the audit session is being taken up by one issue, the no-show by President Park's Senior Secretary for Civil Affairs, Woo Byung-woo, who's under fire for alleged corruption. The opposition parties have demanded all day that he come to answer questions about those allegations. Also urging him to appear was the chair and floor leader of the ruling Saenuri Party, Chung Jin-seok. But Secretary Woo informed the committee later in the afternoon of his final wish to not appear in Parliament today. In response, the floor leaders of the three main political parties have reached a tentative agreement to file a complaint against Woo for violating parliamentary law. The presidential aide has been accused of various irregularities, including suspicious real estate deals involving his in-laws and special favors procured for his son regarding his military service. President Park Geun-hye spoke today at a ceremony to mark Korea's 71st Police Day. She stressed that law and order are the basis for the sustainable national innovation needed to overcome ongoing crises on the security and economic fronts. Here she is.
우리가 현재의 위기를 극복하고 지속 가능한 국가 혁신을 이루어내려면 무엇보다 우리 사회의 법 질서가 바로 서야만 합니다. 법 질서가 무너지면 사회적 약자들이 가장 먼저 가장 큰 피해를 당하고 불법과 무질서가 용인되는 사회에는 발전도 희망도 미래도 없습니다.
President Park expressed her appreciation for the sacrifices made by the country's police force in protecting the public. She also asked them to take a greater role in countering the rising threat of terror, both from North Korea and elsewhere, and in disaster management, citing the recent earthquakes that shook the southeast. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. More to come on News Center in 2 hours' time. Bye for now.